All right. So, welcome to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast. Today, we are exploring a topic that underscores our belief that everyone deserves to love and be loved. This is a judgment free, safe space where we aim to understand the lives of straight men who are cross dressers and how they can find partners who embrace them fully. Joining me today is Maria Elena, affectionately known as the cross-dresser's fairy godmother. And her business partner was supposed to be here, but he's not. So we're going to talk about him a little bit because he happens to fall into this category of being a straight man. And we're going to keep it to this narrow area, although there'll be some clarification throughout the conversation. So, Maria Elena, thank you so much for joining me and for bringing this forward because as someone who has been in the matchmaking industry and we've heard, like I said, I've heard everything when I was a matchmaker, now that I train matchmakers, and this is something that sort of has been slipping through the cracks, and I want to know more about this.
So first of all, Arlene, thank you so much for having me here and giving me the opportunity to talk about that, because I was the first one that I didn't know anything about that world some years ago. And it's quite interesting. And I mean, they are so kind and so tender. I love to work with them, really.
I love this. So everybody in this community is referring to you as the cross-dresser's fairy godmother. Can you
Mhm.
share how this title came to be and what does this signify in your work?
Well, one of the things is that from the very first moment, I create a safe space for them to express fully who they are and their preferences. And they started really being really open with me. So it started like a joke. It's like, okay, you are like the fairy godmother. And then it's like, yes, they see me as a person. They can be really vulnerable and talk about anything. They know that I will never judge them. In fact, I celebrate them and I love them because they have this need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because for some of them is something that they live really in secret. Most of them are straight men, and most of them are married, and their families don't know anything about their preferences, their lifestyle. Even the friends don't know anything. The spouse doesn't know anything, and they need to talk about that.
And I'm curious, when did you realize that you had a gift for coaching and supporting cross dressers?
Um, Arlene, why if we start talking about what it is really a cross-dresser?
That'd
Because
be great.
maybe it's not obvious for everyone. So the definition of a cross-dresser is a person who loves to wear clothes that we habitually think they belong to the other gender. And especially when we talk about men who love to wear women's clothes. So this is about gender expression. Is the way we want to behave, talk, dress, the way we want to interact with the world. This is different from gender identity, which is about uh, I am a man, I am a woman. That's different.
Mhm.
And this is also different from sexual orientation. We assume, that was my thinking at the beginning, that cross dressers were gay men. And in fact, they are not. I mean, we cannot say anyone, but the vast majority are very straight men that love to wear women's clothes. And it was quite difficult for me to understand at the beginning. For some of them, is maybe like a fetish, is something that helps them to feel, I don't know, to connect with this feminine part, but only in a sexual aspect. For others, is more about this need to connect with the feminine part, this need to connect with this tenderness, this this different approach to life.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that question because when I was trying to research this specific dynamic, what I found was a term called transvestic disorder. And according to the psych information that's available out there, it says transvestic disorder is a mental health condition that may require treatment if the individual experiences severe shame, anxiety, or lack of acceptance. But then we had a conversation with your business partner who also had some time, I guess, in medical school, and he was explaining that it's not a disorder, it's not required to get treatment, and so that really like was interesting to me to figure out what was behind it. And then now you've mentioned that it's primarily in many situations is more of a sexual arousal, sort of like a fetish, and I just want to understand it, right? Because it's
Mm.
different.
Yeah, for some of them is a fetish. For
Mhm.
others, is a need. Some of them, they told me, when I dress up, when I use women's clothes and high heels and a wig, I feel complete.
Wow. It's so interesting because the clothing that we wear in our society is kind of like a societal construct. Like,
Completely. Yeah,
you know
sure.
what I mean? So I don't get, I mean, I want to understand why this is a need because there are societies that men wear skirts.
Yeah.
And it's not considered a woman's thing. It's not considered feminine. There are societies where men wear like dresses, that things that look like dresses. Women wear pants. So it's very interesting.
And imagine you just said that if we go into any medical research, there is this quote, or it was, that cross-dresser is a um, mental issue.
Mm,
But according to what? In this culture, not in other cultures. So this is something we really made up. Why men should only wear some kind of clothes? Why women only are allowed to wear other kind of clothes? And sometimes I say, when we have these boxes, like men need to look that way and women need to look this way, if there are some people that don't fit into these boxes, the question is not to change the person.
mm.
The question is to change the box.
I love that. That is so good. What's one myth about cross dressers that you feel most passionate about correcting?
Arlene, they have this deep feeling, most of them, that they are not lovable,
Hmm.
that something is wrong with them just because they have a specific preference with some clothes. And it makes no sense for me. I
Yeah.
mean, we all deserve to love and to be loved.
Hmm.
And just because they wear a specific fabric or specific shoes, does it make that person less lovable, less valuable? And every time I talk to them, I tell them, you are enough. there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing to fix because you are not broken. You just have different preferences compared to the majority. But that doesn't mean that you are wrong.
This is so true. And you seem to have built this trust
Yeah.
with your clients, and that's really like amazing because you're not a man who is a cross-dresser. Why do they trust you? What is it about, your who you are and what you do that these men trust you as opposed to trusting somebody else who maybe is part of the community?
Because they love women, they adore women. That's why they want to dress up as a woman, and they want to be accepted by women.
Mm.
So it's not another cross dressers. Imagine that I am a cross dresser. My focus is not on receiving the support or validation from another cross dresser. It's about receiving support and validation from women because I want to be um, part of their world. And they have this feeling of shame and guilt. So they feel like mm, less men. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So that's why it is so important validation from women.
I could not agree more. And I think that our society needs to change and allow men to have a full range of emotional expressions
Yeah.
because I see how um, parents raise their sons and tell them you shouldn't cry, man up, be strong. And it's really not healthy. And I think that now more than ever is really starting to take a toll on young men.
Yeah.
And, this type of thing where someone has a specific desire that where they're not hurting anyone, they're not doing anything harmful to anyone, but they're being judged. We need to move away from this type of society. I mean, there's a lid to every pot, and I'm curious what type of women are accepting of men that have this desire to cross dress.
In fact, from my experience, the more we talk about that and the more women know that these men exist, the more we as women, the more we are open to accept cross dressers as friends, as a partners, as a co-workers.
Yeah.
The For me the first let's say challenge, I don't want to use the word problem, but the first challenge is the lack of information.
Hmm. Yeah.
In general, we don't know what it is, we don't understand what it is. That's why one of my focus is in talking about them, about this community, and talk about the reality. So it's much more than just how can I say, this funny image of men wearing women's clothes. What is behind this image? That's what is important.
What is behind the image? Like, what are these men like aside from the fact that they're cross dressers?
I'm not sure if I understand your question. Do you mean why they hide this preference?
No, because one of the things, and we had a conversation with your business partner who is a male, who is straight and a cross dresser, and he had mentioned that these men love women, that they're supportive, that they like to go shopping with the women and enjoy it instead of like the average guy may go shopping with their wives and be frustrated and want to leave and not want to. Whereas these men who are cross dressers have an affinity for that, and actually maybe even have more of a friendship with their wives in terms of these feminine factors that the
Yeah.
average man wouldn't have. So that's kind of what I'm alluding to, that essentially what are the benefits, right? The benefits of being with a man who's a cross dresser who is straight,
Mhm.
right? Because we're not
Yes.
talking about the gay men that are cross dressers.
Mhm.
That's a different category.
It's interesting that you said that they need this kind of friendship, this girl friendship. With one of my clients, we were talking about that. One day, that person told me, you know, Maria, I feel that I don't need you as a coach anymore. I need you as a friend. So let's have our conversations as if we were girlfriends talking about makeup, about clothes, about anything. It's like, I want to have this connection. And that made me realize how different men interact with men and women with women.
Mm,
Men are not allowed to talk about feelings. And this is one of the needs for a crossdresser to talk about their feelings. That's why the conversation is easier with a woman. That's why they love me, because they can talk with me again as a fairy godmother, as someone that is not judging me, that is helping me to be myself, that is helping me to achieve my goals and dreams and desires, knowing that, again, there's nothing wrong in being a crossdresser.
I love this. Maria Elena, tell me about you. I just want to share with this audience who you are and how you came into this genre, if you will, or this type of work.
Yeah. Well, I'm a single mother. I have two children. One is now 21 and the other is 15. And part of that started in 2020 when my daughter, who is now 21, came out as a transgender non binary person. And at that time, I realized that I had no idea what transgender means, and even worse, non binary. And all that I knew was wrong. So I decided to start from scratch and learn everything I knew, and started from, it's like with a beginner's mind, let's say that.
Mhm.
And the more I was in connection with the LGBTQ plus community, with different groups, communities, associations, families, I realized that I do belong to the queer community. Uh, and then I decided to, let's say, to focus my coaching practice with this community. And at some point, I met my business partner, the person who is now my business partner, who was telling me, I'm a cross-dresser. I have a huge Facebook community. I don't know how to serve them because I don't have the tools, I don't have the time. And I was really open to work with them because the more I knew, the more I loved this community, because that need that I felt that there was, um, is like this lack of self acceptance because of society expectations, and this pressure we need, this pressure we feel to be accepted, to belong.
Mhm. Yeah. Where are you based out of?
I live in Spain, near Barcelona. so Mediterranean coast.
Nice. I love it there.
Yeah.
Um, this is such an interesting area, and I'm wondering only because as someone who trains professional matchmakers, I feel like there's an opportunity here for so many women that constantly complain there aren't any good men out there. I can't meet anyone. All the good ones are taken or they're gay. And
Yeah.
there's so many single men who happen to be cross dressers, who are decent human beings, who have normal lives, who go
Mm-hmm.
to work every day, dresses, in a masculine, I guess, the construct of what men wear.
Yeah.
But they happen to have this secret thing, and they're missing out because they're not able to connect with women because of this fear of them finding out. I'm sure there's a bunch of single ones. I'm sure there are a lot, I'm sure, that are already in relationships and who are hiding this.
Exactly.
But I feel like there's an opportunity here because there's so many women that want to connect with a good man, and perhaps they'll be comfortable with knowing that he is a cross dresser. And I'm curious, like, so when a man is a cross dresser, when does this come out in terms of, like, when are they out there as cross dressers versus wearing their what quote unquote normal? Like, do they go out at night and go to some, probably I would think, a gay bar, even if they're not gay, just because I would
Yeah.
imagine they'd be more accepted. Like, tell me more about this lifestyle and how that comes about.
That's that's really a great thing to talk about because for some of them, for the vast majority of them, it's so difficult to talk about that. So imagine you start dating a woman. When do you feel is the right moment to talk about that?
Mhm.
During the first dates, let's say the first weeks, months, um, you don't feel confident enough to talk about that. And then time uh, goes by, and maybe um, 1 year passes, or 2 or 3, and then it's like, okay, is now the right moment? What if she runs away from me? What if she starts spreading this information everywhere? What if she doesn't accept me and I love her? And from the perspective of the woman is also difficult. It's like, okay, why don't you talk about that from the very beginning? Why are you talking about that, I don't know, after 5 years, 10 years? So from the cross-dresser perspective, it's never the right moment. They are so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, matchmaking is a huge opportunity to talk about that from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like, this is me. And because there is a matchmaker between the cross-dresser and the potential partner, it's easy to talk about that. It's easy to talk up front. So for me, this is great because, as we said before, some of them are living this life completely in secret. I talked with some cross-dressers in the past who were telling me, I only dress up once or twice a year when my wife or my spouse, my partner, is on holidays.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only time I feel free enough to be myself. So imagine the sadness of this person who who is, how can I say, who feels complete only once or twice a year. So sometimes they go to gay bars, not because they are gay, but because they feel safe there.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite difficult. There are also some dressing services,
Oh,
but this is like a place for cross dressers to go and gather and dress up, but only interacting with them. And this is not the, how can I say, the outcome, the goal they really want. They want to gather with women.
hmm.
So it's quite difficult to find these places. So in some scenarios, let's say it's easier if we go to the goth scene or heavy metal scene. In some countries, there is this Rocky Horror Picture Show fan club,
Yeah.
but this is limited to some countries or some, how can I say, some ages maybe. Not every cross dress is open to go to those places or to those clubs. Or so for me, matchmaking is the is the best opportunity for them to find the right partner.
I would agree with you 100% because in the matchmaking world, what we do is to help open up people's minds about giving someone else an opportunity, a for themselves to give, to be open minded, but also we broker these opportunities so that, for example, often we have challenges when with short men because so many women think they want to be with someone who's 6 feet tall or taller, even if they're only 5 feet tall, and there's a limit to the amount of men that in America is 14.5% of men are 6 feet or taller. And yet these women have this idea in their head that that's all they want. And so a lot of them are single because they're using this as a criteria. And so
Mhm.
when if there's a matchmaker who can explain who these men are and what wonderful qualities they have, aside from the fact that they're also cross dressers,
Mhm.
and even when, because I'm sure every cross dresser has their own specific way of expressing,
Yeah.
themselves. So it may be that they only dress up at home with their partner, or maybe they dress up when they're out of town and nobody knows them, or maybe they go to a place with their partner and it's a fun thing, or maybe it's Halloween. I don't know. I actually, it's funny because I never even thought about this. I don't know. This is just not something that's ever come up in my life, other than a trans person or the shows and stuff like that. But I had a friend who was straight, but he would love to wear women's clothes. And every holiday he was dressed as a woman. And I used to say, is he gay? What's the deal with him? But he doesn't identify as gay. And he might be one of these men who happens to be a cross dresser, even though he's straight. He's like a super successful, very wealthy real estate
Yeah.
broker with big companies and stuff, and
Mhm.
super like amazing. But we would always kid around because he was always like, if every holiday, for Halloween here, he would always dress up as a woman, and just every opportunity he got. And I feel like
Mhm.
now that I'm thinking about it, he's probably a cross dresser, which, hey, we loved him no
Yeah.
matter what, and we had a great relationship. He was super smart. It didn't get in the way of anything in his life. And
Exactly.
I think a matchmaker could um, explain this to a woman who is, you know, who wants to have a partner, who
Mhm.
maybe there's a partner who's ideally suited, where they could be very compatible, where they have similar values and life goals. But there's this one thing. I think a matchmaker would be a great liaison to bring people together in this particular case. Otherwise, you're just going to have women who are just sitting and waiting to have a partner, and these men who are sitting and waiting to have a partner who's going to accept them.
Yeah.
Neither the two shall meet, right? And it's kind of sad when there's so much opportunity here.
Mhm. And from a woman's perspective, having a cross-dresser as a partner is like having a male partner and at the same time a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Because with a cross-dresser as a woman, now talking as a woman, with a cross-dresser you can talk about anything you will talk with a man. And also you can talk about makeup, about clothes, about fashion, and having a fun conversation and go shopping and talk about, I don't know, colors, fabrics. And it's not a kind of conversation you will have with what we consider a majority of men, a man who is not a cross-dresser,
Yeah.
who will not pay any attention to that.
Yeah, it's funny because I think most women love to have a gay man as their friend. Like I always had a gay, I call my gay husband or my gay boyfriend because, for a similar reason, if you really think about
Yeah,
it, because you can have these conversations and they didn't have to put on these airs that, of you got to be a masculine man and all this masculine toxicity where they're still men. They just have the ability to hone in on this femininity or this feminine side of them that is very appealing to women to have friends like that. Like I love me a gay man as a best friend.
exactly. For me, the what is coming to my mind right now is that cross-dressing for these men is a way to, how can I say, to allow themselves to connect with their feelings,
Hmm.
to release this need to always be the man who is always strong and successful and having everything sorted out. So no, it's like, let me be in this place of relax and enjoy life in a different way, a different speed, and let's connect with feelings in a different way.
Wow. You just blew my mind with that statement because if you think about it from that perspective, that makes perfect sense. I mean, putting aside the sexual arousal, the folks that are in it for that purpose, I really think you hit on something here, and it'd be a nice conversation to have with like a psychologist, or I don't even
Mhm.
know if there's somebody who specializes in this area, because by being able to release that identity that these men have to have and look a certain way as a man, when you can embrace looking like a woman, now you can tap into these emotions and a different way in the way that we are, right? That is amazing. I really think you're onto something there. And I would love to continue a conversation at a later show and bring
Mhm.
an expert in because that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. So, what advice are you giving the men then at this point who are seeking relationships with women that might be open to accepting their specific lifestyle?
First of all, is about accepting themselves, understanding that again, there's nothing wrong with them, and focusing on the qualities they have. In fact,
Mm,
what we said, that it's easier for them to talk about feelings and to connect with the emotions. This is something that can be really attractive from a woman's perspective. Instead of a barrier, that is something that can bring closer cross dressers and women. And the more we talk about cross dressers and the more women know that cross dressers exist and what is really a cross dresser, the more we are giving opportunities to these men to connect with women and to women to be open to connect with them.
That is such a great point. One of the questions I was going to ask you is, are you having more and more conversations with women just to help them understand that this is a lifestyle that exists, that these men are looking for partners and that they're potentially great partners? Obviously not everyone, but a good majority of them are just perfectly healthy, functional men who just
Good.
happen to have this, desire, hobby, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
um, I think it requires, more and more. And I think, being on this show, I think is a great, great way to start having those conversations so that people have awareness. And it's not just the trans community, which is what is typically associated,
Yeah.
but in fact, this is a group of straight men who cross dress.
Mhm. And you cannot imagine the quantity of cross dressers that are um, giving this, how can I say, showing up to the world, um, feeling this pattern of, I don't like to we use the word pattern, but this image of um, men that are so masculine. This is the image they give to the world, but it's not what they feel inside. I work with lawyers, with people who are in the military world, and of course they need to have this public, let's say, public image, very
Mhm.
masculine, and in reality they are hidden their true desires and preferences. So they deserve to have a space at home with the family, with their spouse, to express themselves, to be free, to say, okay, this is me, I have feelings, this is what I love. I need to have this public image, which is very different, but this is not me. This is my job, this is my career, this is whatever. But me, deep inside, I am not that rude man that I seem to be. I have feelings and I love to talk about feelings and I am tender and I want to connect with my partner in this smooth space, let's say that.
Yeah, and what your statement brings up a question in my mind is cross dressing a combination of, like, yes, they are these masculine men. Yes, they are all of the things that we come to expect of what a man, how they portray themselves in the world. But in addition, the cross dressing is like another part of them, or do you feel that the majority of them would be permanently cross dressing, if you will? um, or maybe I mean, I don't know, because in that case, are they then like a transgender person who really wants to just live their life in the construct of what is perceived as a woman, or is it really just an addition to being masculine? They also want this feminine side and want to kind of have both sides.
You know,
What's been your experience in that?
any answer is possible.
Okay.
That's the reality. That's something I discover with my daughter. There is not only one way to be transgender, and all the ways are correct. And this is the same with cross dressers. Some of them, they are like transitioning in the middle of accepting that they are transgender, but the vast majority no.
Hmm.
So there is no one specific way to be a cross dresser, the same that there is no only one way to be a woman or one way to be a man. So all the possibilities are there, and all, again, all are correct.
Amazing.
So this is really helping me to open my mind even more.
Yeah.
Some years ago, I stumbled across a quote from Mother Teresa, and this is like my mantra. Um, if you judge, sorry, if you are busy judging people, you don't have time to love them.
Mm,
And
amazing.
this is really my approach when I work with cross dressers. I don't judge because they are so lovable.
Maria Elena, you have really brought to light a very, very important message. And I'm so grateful for you to share these insights and experiences. I think your work is vital in fostering understanding and acceptance. And for our listeners who want to learn more or seek support where they can find you, what's a good place for them to reach out?
I have my website, which is mariaelenaonline.com,
Hmm.
and they can also find me on social media, on LinkedIn, on Facebook with my name, Maria Elena Pamies. And I'm open to talk about anyone about that. Yeah, really. Some of them, they just need a conversation, Arlene. They just need to share that with someone who will understand their journey and will embrace their journey. And for me, it's a pleasure and it's an honor every time I receive a message telling me, thank you for being open to talk with me about that. I feel safe. I feel complete. And that's the only thing I needed. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Excuse me. I love this. I am so, so grateful for having you on this show. We will include all your details in the show notes. And I know you have a gift that you'll be sharing with any of the listeners just to kind of get them going. Anyone who's struggling with this in their lives and want some support and validation, I think you've met her. She's the cross dresser's fairy godmother, and now you know why. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Maria Elena.
Thank you so much, Erlene. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.